Right, we're live now.
Okay, have you passed the host to me?
Yes, I just have, yeah.
Right, thank you. Okay, it's 6 o'clock. We will start the meeting. Well, not quite actually. I tell you that there are no deferrals from additional chairman's actions on Monday morning. Item 1, apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies?
Thank you, Chair. No apologies this evening.
Thank you.
I'm here now.
Councillor Dowling's just arrived.
Oh, right.
I finally got my internet working for a short time. Hopefully it'll keep going.
Okay, Bill. Thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest on items on the agenda. Any declarations? No, thank you. Item 3, to receive written requests. There are none. Item 4, to grant. No. Item 5, I can't see any members of the public here, so that's it. Item 6, pre-planning. Excuse me. There is no pre-planning. Item 7, to approve the draft open minutes of the Planning Consultative Committee meeting on the 10th of November. Do I have your agreement to those minutes? If you could give us a tick. Thank you. That's unanimous. Item 8.1. There are no planning applications from either of the chairman's actions. So we'll go once I've got down the screen. Item 8.2, to note action by the town clerk. Have you noted the actions?
Noted, yes.
Noted.
Thank you. Please note for Joe. Please note that the planning chairman's actions has been Kevin Taylor and myself at both actions. Item 8.3, street trading and licensing. There are none of either of them. Item 8.4, notices of decision. I trust you've had a look at the notices of decision. There are one or two little interesting ones in there, like the KES has got applications got rejected.
Hooray!
Item 8.5, any other business, and this is the real reason why I didn't cancel the meeting this evening, is that we need to make a decision about draft response to the site allocations consultation on the basis that we need to get it loaded up onto the SDC system by the 18th of December. I trust you've all seen some fantastic notes that Toby has yet again compiled. I don't know how he does it. Would you like to take the lead on this, Toby?
Yeah, happy to.
Okay.
So this is
an
something,
introduction. Yeah,
as an introduction. Yeah. So following on from the meeting last time, I read through the notes that were put together by Joe on what we discussed, and what that obviously prompted me to do was to read through the document again. And often you do a second read and you'll pick up stuff which you didn't really pick up last time. And to be perfectly honest, it's quite a large document, and yeah, it does take, I think, a couple of reads to really get to the nub of what is being proposed, particularly for Stratford. So what I've done is put together, and I assume you've got access to the note, which I think I finished last night. I did an earlier version which went out before the weekend. I finished one from yesterday evening. What I've done is formatted it in the way that Stratford District Council want us to provide comments, which is in one of two forms. I've either got a comment sheet, and the idea is you have to comment on a specific item of the document they put forward and submit a sheet for each one. So I've done the note in to be able to copy and paste into that format. Or alternatively, we can use the online form, which is very similar actually. It would be a bit easier, but again, it would be a sort of copy and paste, and you click on the link on each of the items within the document, and you put up a relevant comment to that. So that's probably the way I'd recommend. So I've structured it in that way. Is it best? I've put some. I've basically changed it quite a lot from when we discussed it last time, and there's one item in particular which, when I looked into it, is quite a big thing. Would you like me to go through each point in turn, and we can discuss each one?
Joe should be able to share the screen if you want to lead us through that.
That would be useful.
I can share my screen. I'm sharing the document that was circulated.
Yes.
I mean, I can share
at the
this.
beginning of the week, or you could, if you've got a more up-to-date version, you can.
Yeah, there's one from last night. I mean, I'm happy to go through it if you like. If I share my window, right, let's work out how to do this.
Okay, I think they have to make you host, and then you
would be promote. Oh no, I can do a share screen. I can do that. I'll share a screen, and this one here.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that now.
You see that now?
Yeah.
Right, let's make it bigger so I can see it. Let me know if you want me to. I'll zoom in a bit more, because I tend to have things quite small. Right then. So what I'll do is I'll go through each one. So there were some comments we made last time, which I've not included as comments to put forward, because principally I think we made comments which were effectively on items which were related to the core strategy anyway. So I think some of the points we'd made, I thought it's not really what's been consulted on. So I've tried to focus it in on the key points, I think. So the first one was in section 2, the housing reserve sites. This one's hopefully quite straightforward in that it's a position of support, to be perfectly honest, that we think it's a good thing that the district council are selecting reserve sites. So if everyone's happy with that, I mean, I'll put some wording in there, so please feel free to provide comments on that. The other point I'm making in the response really is the white paper. We do unfortunately have form with Stratford District Council. It's an item I raised on another issue, which was around renewable energy policy within their plan, which unfortunately they jumped the gun somewhat a few years ago and picked up emerging policy, which never made it into law. And unfortunately, there was a gap in their policy on renewables. So I'm making this quite plain. Please do not use the white paper as policy. But we basically want to. I think it's a good idea that we have the sites allocated. So if everyone's happy with that, I can move on to the next point. Agreement.
Can you raise your hands to say that whether or not you're happy with that? Can I see it?
That's a good point. I think if I work out where to get that meeting control, right?
It's all right. I've got it.
You got it. You'll have to check that out, Ian, because I don't think.
Right, I've got.
I can see participants. Yeah.
Right. I've only got. Right. Sorry. Before we proceed, I've got a hand up actually. Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. Can you just, I need a bit of clarification here on what we are opposing. So we are supporting a general policy on the housing reserve sites, which is fine, but we are the plan set out in the white paper. Can you just clarify what we are opposing? Because when you gave your brief, you referred to the policy set out in the white paper, not the plans.
Okay, yeah, perhaps it's the phraseology of it, but certainly the response we put into the government white paper was that the Stratford Town Council opposes it as it currently stands.
And how does that differ? What's the difference between the policy in the white paper and the housing reserve sites policy? Does that make sense as a question?
I think it's more of a point to make, to be perfectly honest. I mean, they reference the white paper in the documents. They don't use the emerging policy within the white paper, to be fair, or it's hinted in the white paper, and it's just more of a point of clarification. I suppose what the relevance in the context of the white paper is that obviously what the white paper is potentially proposing is a lot more housing allocation going to Warwickshire and our district. Right. So that's probably where I wanted to put that link in, that if we do end up going down that route, we oppose it, but this is work that does contribute towards that if we end up having to take more housing in the district.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Hence it's the support.
Yeah. It's always possible that the white paper will be amended, changed, whatever. So they are two separate. Obviously, Toby, I agree. It's sensible to reference the white paper in this, but they are two quite separate documents, aren't they?
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, I think it's inevitable that the white paper will be changed, one way or another.
Yeah.
Okay. I can't see anybody else who wants to comment on this. So can I ask you to give your consent to submitting what is in front of you? Right. Councillor Dyer? Is Roy still there? Yes.
Yes, I agree. Carry on.
Thank you, Roy.
Sorry.
Okay. Right. Well, we'll go with that one. Toby, would you like to go on to the next one, which I think is 25, isn't it?
Yeah. So this is where it gets a bit more tricky, and what I'll have to do is guide you through what's actually set out in the document, because it took me a few reads to join up all the dots. But essentially, if you look at policy SAP 4, it's proposing that site STRB, which is the site next to the Rosebud Centre, is immediately released as development land. So you're probably worth reading the policy. It's embedded within the policy, but it's essentially it says that to remedy the shortfall in Birmingham, which has already been advised by from Birmingham City Council, that Stratford would effectively be the Stratford sites that are at the top of the pile for us to cover any shortfall in the surrounding areas, and specifically they want to release this particular site immediately, and there is some nuance to it. So in proposal SUA 5, which is made later in the document, it proposes that this site is a mixed development, and the reason for it being pushed forward, and we'll come to it in a bit, is that it essentially it's been put forward as for the only reason to basically support the delivery of the canal quarter as well. What they've identified is a business, which they haven't named, who is unhappy with moving out to the original site, which was used for businesses displaced by that plan, which is the site we've looked at as an application within this committee, on the Ulster Road heading out of Stratford. So business from the canal area doesn't want to go there, and apparently there potentially would be offered a site in this area by the Rosebird as an alternative. And when you read through the documentation, it talks about the site potentially only being viable as a joint employment and housing site if it's developed in a joint way with the 200 housing and the employment land. But essentially, what's been proposed within this this SAP is a new site which would be taken forward immediately.
I think it's more than one business from Western Road, Toby.
Yep.
that objected to going to SUA2.
Yeah. So, well, again, I don't know the full ins and outs of it, but it doesn't cover which particular businesses it was. But I'm sure you will know better than I.
Yeah.
Chair, may I ask a question?
Yeah, sorry, have you put your hand up, David? Sorry, I'm trying to manage several things. If you want to say anything, could you just put your hand up? Anybody,
Brilliant.
Please.
Just a sort of technical question on this, really. If this reserve site is now being released, does that then have a sort of knock-on effect? Will a further site need to be identified as a reserve site, if that makes any sense?
They're not proposing to. So if you remember from the conversation we had at the last meeting, they've effectively proposed 3 sites for the Stratford parish area, which includes 2 sites in Stratford, this site plus the one by Shottery. So it's in the Hathaway ward, but it's immediately adjacent to where they're looking to develop the housing in Shottery anyway, where the new road will go, and also a smaller site in Tiddington. So there's no mention of any further sites within Stratford, but this one does get released immediately by the way the policies are worded. Well, that appears to be the case.
There may be a further. I was just wondering if a further site in the district will need to be identified, but I suppose that's not necessarily the problem for this committee. Yeah,
there's lots of sites proposed anyway. So there's lots of reserve sites, not just in Stratford, but also in other settlements around the district. So I provisionally put forward a object, but I've highlighted that in yellow because that's really what we want to decide. So what I suggest we do, because it relates to other comments, I shall park this one. I think it's if we come back to that one, but let's go for the rest of the document.
Okay.
So, in fact, right, this is another area which is slightly different. And I put a provisional object in, again, highlighted in yellow because it's something we need to discuss. What the document talks about is self-build and custom house building. Within the document, it does designate some specific areas around various settlements for use for self-build and custom house building. It doesn't specifically identify any areas within Stratford parish boundary, but it includes a policy which effectively allows for self-build houses of about, I think they talk about clusters of up to 5 houses, but outside or immediately adjacent to the built-up boundary of Stratford-upon-Avon. So this is going beyond the line which we've designated within our NDP, and potentially, obviously, effectively expanding that area, potentially piecemeal around the site, around Stratford. So that's contradicts, as I've pointed out, policy H1 of the Stratford Neighbourhood Development Plan, which is essentially to preserve the built-up area boundary outside of specific proposals. So, yeah, this one I thought was something, again, we would potentially object to, because it's almost uncontrolled development in some respects. I have put in there the caveat to say that we would be certainly open to discussing potential custom self-build housing projects if they emerge within the parish, and particularly as part of any agreed reserved site, or within, I guess, within the built-up area boundary. But yeah, certainly, I thought it was not a good thing for us to agree to when I was reading up on this and writing this response.
I mean, I don't disagree with that, because it does contradict policy H1. Unfortunately, we have already had instances where there's somebody come along wanting to do a development outside the formal town boundary, and we have objected to it through policy H1, and SDC allowed it to go forward and granted it. So there is a record of SDC not applying policy H1, is what I'm saying. But that shouldn't stop us carrying on with our objection.
No, absolutely not, Chair. We should certainly stand. Just because they've done it once, we need to object and make sure they don't do it again.
Councillor Fradgley?
Thank you. I think that was one of the most important policies that the NDP came up with, was actually protecting that band of land between the built-up area and the NDP. And the policy there is it should only be agricultural or a building of particular importance or positive design. So I think it's Toby, that's a really important area. And if we strengthen any statement there to make it absolutely clear that that's something we're very keen on preserving.
Yeah. I thought I'd get agreement with this one, so that's probably. I mean, is it worth having a vote on this one just to confirm that we'd object to this particular policy?
Yeah. Please, could I have a vote, please? Councillor Dyer?
My concern with Stratford was recently in a national survey.
Sorry, Councillor Dyer, are you going to vote?
Sorry, I was answering the question. I had my hand up for it. Yes, I do vote yes. Object.
Thank you. You haven't put your hand up in the in the system, Councillor Dyer.
I did put my hand up actually, but never mind.
Well, I can't see your picture.
Can't you?
If you just no, because we've got a share screen in front of me. What you have to do is put your hand up in participants.
Oh well, okay, that's a worry.
And that's where you go to vote as well.
Yeah, I've got that back up. Sorry, it was my fault.
That's all right. Okay, right. Toby.
Okay, should we move to the next one? Yeah. This one's hopefully, this next one is basically around built-up area boundaries, and all I'm doing is probably making the point really of which corresponds to the objection that we've just agreed to, which is that we'd support the principle of having settlement boundaries as an effective means of managing development. So this is why I found the other policy a bit difficult to take, actually. Yeah. So that's hopefully a simple one that we're happy to support. I don't know if it's worth confirming that everyone is happy to support built-up area boundaries as in on NDP. I think we probably do that anyway.
Right, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Dowling. Where's he gone? Okay, that's unanimous.
Excellent,
Toby.
Excellent. Right, I've spotted my deliberate mistake. I've not put the right section in, but we're on to policy SAP 7. I think this is actually the same No, actually, it's the same area. Actually, it's the same point essentially as we've made for policy SAP 6. So I think, yeah, I've put the same point in there. So I'm not looking through the documents. I can't remember exactly why I've done it in there twice, but it's obviously mentioned twice. And I thought basically to put the same objection in the same manner.
Yeah.
Is there anything else? Pretty much. I think I just copied the same point. So is everyone in agreement? Well, I think we've already agreed. We object to basically.
I've got I've got a question. Councillor Curtis?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Toby, just a point of clarification.
Yeah.
You say it's on page, I don't know how much this matters, but you've got page 46. I've got the SAP in front of me. I think I've got page 47. I mean, I don't know how important to get that detail right.
I'll edit it. Get it right. What we need to do is give Joe, whoever's the person responsible for basically uploading these comments, the right instructions. So I'll have to get that one right. But I felt that was, again, I think it covered the same kind of area. I can't.
Absolutely.
And making the same objection essentially. Okay. One, I think we agreed last time, which was to on the A46 safeguarding. So they've got policy SAP 99. They want to safeguard some areas. We'd already written in the notes last time that we'd support this. So again, I've put that as a clear area of support for us. So I guess no one has any issue with that. I think that's probably already been discussed and agreed.
Sorry, Toby, I don't think we've had a vote on the previous one.
Oh, right. Do you want to? Okay.
Could I have a vote on whatever David thinks the page number is?
I don't know. I mean, Chair, does it matter if these page numbers aren't? I mean, I don't know how important that is or not. I don't want to be pedantic about this, but if
no,
we need...
Joe will be forwarding posting up our comments for us by December the 18th. And I'm sure that she'll be looking at it before the December the 18th, just to make sure that what we're saying ties up with what the consultation response is on the SDC website.
Thank you.
Okay. So
I've got a vote on that one, have I? Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Do we need a vote on this safeguarding?
Well, we really ought to be seen to be voting on everything.
Yeah. Well, that's an easy one. Let's do a vote then.
Councillor Dyer, thank you. That's unanimous, thank you.
Excellent. Right. We're now returning to this area east of Shipston Road, Stratford-upon-Avon. So essentially we covered what the policy was earlier in the discussion, which was to effectively allow this one to be put forward as a development site. As you'll note in the core strategy, there are policies named SUA.number, which effectively set out firm development plans. So within the SAP document, they are proposing this new one, which is named SUA 5, which effectively covers off the policy that this site is brought forward as a definite area of development, effectively giving it the same status as SU1 or SUA2 in the core strategy as made. So what I've done is, I think, basically setting out. I think I'll just have to remind myself verbatim. I did specifically pick out a paragraph which related to this very particularly, which is paragraph 7.3.3. So the reason they are justifying the development of this site is the allocation of the site at this time is solely to assist in delivering the objectives of the Canal Quarter regeneration zone and for no other purpose. I think the arguments I've made here is that we've already seen projects emerge from this plan. In fact, there's been them in front of this very committee, and certainly one of the points we noted, I think, on the first development proposed, which was on the site, the old DCS site, the old Canners site, was that it did cover a lot of housing and potentially allowed the number as set out in the core strategy, which is 650, to be exceeded. So I've made that point. I've also made the point, really, which again I'd appreciate some thoughts on the businesses. I think it states that one of the existing businesses in the Canal Quarter, I think it's probably worth checking that one out, but I'm sure it must state only one, although I'm sure I wouldn't have written that otherwise. What I don't understand is what that business is and what impact that's going to have on the Canal Quarter regeneration. I mean, it could be that it's a sizable employer taking up a lot of land, or it could be that it's just in an inconvenient place. And what I don't understand is that, and why is that then justifying the move to this new site out on Shipston Road, and then that having to become only viable by tacking on 200 houses to it. So that, for me, I can't get a balanced assessment of whether this proposal is appropriate or not, and also again why we have to have the housing to go with this employment development to make the scheme viable.
Councillor Fradgley.
My recollections of this is that B&Q some years ago didn't upgrade to fit in with the new sort of facings at Maybird because they actually wanted to move. And then they were actually going to close and move out of Stratford completely. And I think there were discussions that the district council rushed into to offer B&Q land, the land we're talking about at the moment, in Shipston Road. And there was a lot of discussion there that councillors didn't want a large building, a large business like B&Q going there, because it would actually open it up to becoming another Maybird on the other side of the town. And I think there were worries still that if you do put a large business there of some lights that people would like to go to, that opens up more land there coming up for retail development or whatever. Well, probably not in this day and age. It's going to be retail sort of collapsing. But B&Q obviously has changed its mind. It's enlarging its site on the Maybird. So I don't understand, as you do, Toby, why they're actually trying to preserve a large site here. The car showrooms seem to be happy.
Right, I think I'm back with you now.
The large showrooms, etc., seem to be happy to go out to SUA too. So car showrooms. So I'm a bit puzzled like you, but that's the background that I know.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because obviously B&Q isn't in the canal area. No. And also what they're proposing in this is to amend SUA2 to incorporate a DIY store. Yeah. So
I think, to my mind, the whole thing needs to be rethought, because retail has just changed underneath our feet. It's just a different ball game all of a sudden, the two big closures today. And I'm sure Maybird isn't going to be exempt from these retail changes. I just think it needs to go back to the drawing board and think about it again. It seems to me allocating something for blight for a number of years.
Thank you, Councillor Fradgley. Councillor Dyer?
My concern is a recent newspaper survey showed Stratford-upon-Avon to be the seventh best place to live in the country, which means the developers, Birmingham, anybody will try to do precisely what they're trying to do now, build more houses, whatever the development plans.
You're probably right.
Thank you, Councillor Dyer. Councillor Taylor?
I believe that the business that they had the issue with there was Build Base, if I remember rightly, that they were the ones that didn't want to move to the new location, just for reference.
Yeah. Well, when I was involved with it, it was B&Q that was being talked about,
Yeah.
but I'm pretty sure other similar businesses would have been in the frame there. Yeah.
Sorry, if I could say that it was B&Q. Build Base came next. So you're both right in one way or another. Councillor Curtis?
Thank you, Chair. Just picking up Councillor Other Fradgley's comment. I think one of the problems with this the whole SAP is that it predates COVID and all of the changes in retail. We don't know what the implications of changes to people's work commute patterns will be going forward. I think anything that encourages further retail development out of town, we really should try and resist at all costs, if it's possible. But I think it is a problem that this whole site allocations plan has been overtaken by events. How much we can really influence that because of that change, I really don't know.
Where's the background noise coming from? Has it gone?
I think it's been identified.
Oh, right, okay.
Right. Is there any further questions about this particular comment? I mean, I think we should possibly park this one again because there's a further comment because we get to the actual site itself further down in the comments. So if you're happy to discuss it then and basically come up with a decision on the three comments we're going to have to make related to this this SUA 5 stroke housing development, I think it's SUA B. So if you're happy to do that later, we'll move on to the next one if that's okay. Right. Back onto something which I think we can support. So within the document, they've actually picked up on things which are set out in the NDP. So what they're proposing is, again, a bit like SUA 5 is a new proposal for Stratford-upon-Avon SUA 6. And I've, again, doing this late at night, I'll need to change that. But essentially, it's the Stratford-upon-Avon Gateway. So this is the area they've defined, which is essentially where the old NFU buildings were on the corner of the Birmingham Road. And it doesn't exactly mirror what we've got in the NDP as the sort of improved environmental improvement area in that area, but it almost does. It talks about having a master plan going all the way to Greenhill Street, to be perfectly honest. For some bizarre reason, it also incorporates the hospital, even though that's probably fairly fixed now. But I thought that's one we could probably support. The only caveat I would make with it is to basically make sure it aligns with our NDP. And I did specifically pick out something they talked about, a cycle route being almost a discretionary thing, and saying, well, no, let's put this in fully as a cycle route. It's worth reading the policy to look at it. I mean, let's say there's not a lot wrong with it. It's aligned with our NDP. It's just, can we make it better aligned with our NDP?
If you remember the town council meeting last week, we had a presentation from Julie Crawshaw, who is planning on improving the cycling from Alden Street down to Windsor Street. there are some of us that don't think that it is an improvement. So personally, being a cyclist, I admit, I would want to support something that was a cycle route through the Gateway project. I have to say, Toby, if you weren't aware, the Gateway project's been on the books for
a long time, yeah.
Yeah, probably about 8 or 9 years.
Yeah, but yeah.
Chancellor Fradgley?
I was just going to I'm just going to very much support Toby's notion that we should actually reinforce the NDP at this point and actually reference that quite strongly.
There are no other hands up, so could I take a vote on what's been proposed? That's fine, thank you. Unanimous.
Okay, so I'll move to the next one.
Yeah.
Again, this is another thing I think we can support. It's again, it strongly aligns with what's in the NDP. So this is what we've described as the Rother Street Triangle, but they've rather truncated it and made it into more of a trapezoid, I'd say. They've taken off the firs, but essentially it's about developing that particular area. Again, I could see no problem with it. I think it's something we should be supporting as a town council. And again, it's worth reading the minutiae of the policy, but it looked fine to me.
Nobody has got their hand up to wish to speak, not even David. Okay. Right, could we take a vote on it then, please? That's fine, thank you.
Right, and I think the final one of the sort of good news which is coming out of the SAP, they've proposed to effectively, through policy proposal SUA 8, to safeguard some land at Stratford College. So this is the car park, essentially, adjacent to the high school. And the reason for its safeguarding is for potential use by the high school to expand should it need to.
Can I just say,
Councillor Fradgley?
There is an active planning application on that site at the moment, which is just going through planning. So that will be probably approved as it goes forward.
Right, nobody else has got a hand up, so could I ask you to have a vote? That's fine, thank you. Unanimous.
Excellent. Right, move to the next one. So this is where we're getting into the sites. So what I suggest to do is do SUA A and TID A first, and then I'll finish off our discussion really on what we want to do about SUA B, which obviously relates to the new policy proposal SUA 5 as well. So this is essentially the site they've proposed in Shottery, so adjacent to where housing is already being developed. And what I've suggested here that we support this, and we support this as being sensible for a reserve site due to its proximity to housing and also the facilities further up the road, which we know are being developed. But we also caveat our support really. So in terms of if it does come forward as a site, the Western Relief Road has to be fully implemented, and the community facilities planned with the Shottery development have to be fully implemented as well. And also, I think as they've suggested already, actually in their policy, the housing is restricted to the eastern part of the site, i.e. the lower part of the site, in order to preserve the green fringe of the town. and keeping views of Borden Hill visible from the town, as we talked about in the meeting last time.
Councillor Fradgley?
My only difficulty with this site is, I mean, I'm glad that you're saying that the housing comes down to preserve the rim. Last time this came up, there was all hell to pay on the access and egress, because you're trying to access this site off a very, very busy, very, very fast road that's on a hill. And I know that we got the highways officers out because they had actually said no objection. And when they actually saw it, they said, oh gosh, we do have an objection. And they actually changed their objection because of the access. I think approval here is slightly more equivocal on making sure that if it does go ahead, the incredibly dangerous access has got to be resolved. And the other thing is, there is a concern with more housing coming here, accessing the Evesham Road. It's going to really build up traffic on the Evesham Road, which is being delivered to the centre of the town. It's being delivered Arden Street area, and I don't think this can go ahead until a considerable amount of infrastructure is sorted out as to how the town traffic works to take on even more traffic from this area, particularly in line of Long Marston coming through as well.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, I agree with the comments that Councillor Fradgley just made. I've got a bit of concern about the comment about the Western Relief Road, because that almost implies that we are in favour of the Western Relief Road and we are going to support it and it's going to be implemented. And that's not the case at the moment. So I think we need to be careful on how we phrase our wording.
Just a point of clarity on this, I'm talking about the road between the Evesham Road and the Ulster Road, which has got approval.
In which case, that's fine. That's not quite how I would have read that. Yeah, fine.
Yeah, it's the Southwestern Relief Road. If I said, yeah, that would be the road which has not gone forward yet.
Yeah. Okay.
That must be made abundantly clear, because there are real issues which are very, as you know, very hotly debated at the moment.
Hang on, Councillor Curtis.
Pressing the wrong buttons. Sorry. Just on Jenny's point about traffic into the town centre, it's either page 10 or page 34. There is this statement that traffic in the town centre will be managed more effectively to reduce its impact on the environment. And I think perhaps that is worth picking up.
Is that it, Councillor Curtis?
That's it.
Thank you. Councillor Cleave?
Yeah, it was picked up by Mr. Mayor, but yeah, I just wanted to clarify that the Western Relief Road, is there a way to make it more clear, because not everybody knows or understands that that is the one between Evesham Road and Ulster Road? Because as Councillor Fradgley said, there's a lot of people out there who might get it confused with. Yeah, brilliant. What are you saying? Fantastic. Thank you.
I do agree with you, Councillor Cleave. Yeah. In fact, the road from Evesham Road to Ulster Road has already got planning permission.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. That's there. But it's just making it clear that when we're putting it in, that's the road we're talking about.
But the difficulty with that road, it's classified as an estate road.
Mm.
And can you imagine it ought to be a bit more than an estate road by the time we've finished? Councillor Fradgley?
Yeah, I'm just, is there an option between support and object? Because I think this parcel of land here has got a few more difficulties attached to it for immediate development or even medium-term development that really have to be solved before I, as a local councillor, would be happy to see another 100-odd houses going into this area.
Could I say that if we were considering this in, say, Chairman's actions, we might enter something like a holding objection, requesting that something happens. But
Yeah.
there you go.
I'm just going to look at what we get asked for in the form, actually. Let's see what options STC give us. So I think you can basically, it's basically says, do you support or object, as a yes or a no.
Yeah.
But I suppose we can actually probably leave those unticked and just put comments down. Or I don't think, we could call it a holding objection. I put forward, my personal view was that it is, out of the two areas, it is the one I think is sensible. Though I do note it is obviously subject to other considerations in terms of when a scheme would go forward. And also it's probably worth highlighting that it goes back to this policy we talked at the start of the discussion, whereby Stratford seems to be top of the pile in terms of if any reserve sites are needed, then it's Stratford first and before any other settlement in the district is considered.
Yeah.
Because, sorry, I should put my hand up. I really think that if this piece of land does come forward for development, we're really scraping the bottom of the barrel, because I don't think it's immediately suitable for all manner of reasons. This piece of land, if it is developed, I think it's got a lot of problems, but it's very likely that developers will be looking at the land on the other side, which has had 3 or 4 developments resisted on the other side. This is an area which has been argued over and resisted for planning development for a number of years.
Well, I think the answer there is that both sides, as you go up the hill, have been rejected in the past.
Yeah.
Do you want to consider putting a holding objection until we've got more information?
I mean, any comment, I would like it to be that this, because of its difficulties, this land is not really suitable for development at this time. So something along those lines. It might come into play, but it really isn't land that we should be considering as a first option. Yeah.
Okay. So do you want me to reword something and send it around?
Could you? That would be great.
I mean, the only difficulty I see is if we object to SUA B as well, then we end up with no reserve sites in Stratford. And are we happy with that position?
I think
it's what we say. It's how we word it. If we have a holding objection, it means that we're waiting to see what's going to happen. And we do. I mean, the favourite one actually is you're putting in a holding objection because you're waiting for a response from highways.
I mean, I just think there are a number of issues attached to this, which I do think the district need to come out and tell us more about. Perhaps they might be invited to a planning meeting to come and actually discuss it more fully, so that we clearly understand their intentions on this piece of land.
Okay, could I take Councillor Curtis?
Thank you, Chair. I mean, just picking up Councillor Jenny Fraser's point, it would really concern me. I know each application would be judged on its merits, but if that development did go ahead on that side of the hill, then I think the pressure to build on the other side of the hill, where I know the farmer wants to sell up for development anyway, it would be very, very difficult to resist. So I think a holding objection would be a good solution at the moment, or not a solution. I'd certainly support that. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Cleeve?
Yeah, exactly the same. The way we initially had support in principle, could we have object unless, that sort of wording? I don't know if you said, can we do a hold an objection on the SAP on this?
They've made it binary, support or object.
Yeah, so can we do object unless? And we're not saying we would completely object, but object unless these terms are met.
What I suggest is, I'm not as skilled, I don't think, as Neil would be in terms of writing this stuff off the top of my head. So if I reword this one, but the principle is that, I mean, is it worth? We need a vote. We want to object to this site, and we want to object to it based upon its impact, potentially from a traffic point of view, how we get access to this, how the site is actually accessed, and a general lack of information on how the site could be put forward, noting it's been put forward in the past and has been and has not been supported by the town council.
Yeah, I think there's too little information at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose all we've got at the minute is a pro forma set out when they've done all the site assessment. So we'll probably have to look into that. I might have a quick look. I don't know if anyone's got that handy as to what it actually says, because I don't think it gave a full green. I think it was page 180, wasn't it? I don't think it gives it a full go ahead as to what was actually covered. That's right, let's get down to it. What does it say?
Did you want to say something else, Jill? Because your hand's up. Ah, thank you.
May I just say, in a way, they've actually made it quite difficult for us, giving us just the 2 sites, because really I agree that we do have to show that we're prepared to take some development, but just giving 2 sites makes it quite difficult, because we actually know what the issues are with both of those, and it's difficult to see if there's a better site around.
Okay, could I take Councillor Dowling? Bill?
Yeah. Hi. Can you? I'm just on my phone because the thing's gone down again. There have been 2 applications on that site turned down, and one went to appeal and was turned down again. So I think we're going to have to certainly put in an objection, and I don't think it's a holding objection. I think it's an objection. This site's not suitable for development, and it's been turned down twice, and I'm fairly sure it was turned down once on appeal as well the first time. So it's a site that shouldn't be built on, in my opinion. And I think that we should object to this, and for those reasons, that it's not a suitable site. As Jenny said, it's just not a suitable site to build on. We've discussed it as a town council several times, and we've objected to it every time. Thank you.
Is this one worth having a vote on to confirm that we could put an objection forward for it? And obviously what I'll do is write a comment based upon the points that have been made. I've just quickly read the performer which was done for it. It highlights the one red area. It says is non-designated heritage asset, and it says inside, so I'm not entirely sure what that relates to. It then talks about wildlife as being an amber, agricultural land quality as being an amber, and public rights of way being an amber. It then gives everything else a green, to be perfectly honest, including major infrastructure, which is quite interesting. It does put some specific matters to be incorporated into development of the site. Again, we've already mentioned restricting it to the eastern part of the site, providing public open space in the western part of the site, which would probably be okay. It then specifically goes into produce a transport assessment to determine the impact of development on the highway network in Stratford, which is obviously the point we're making, that this looks as if it's going to compound a problem. Talks about archaeology, which probably is fairly standard, hedgerows, and the public path which runs along the boundary of the site. That should be incorporated. But okay, so we're basically saying that this information here isn't enough.
And I do think in the White Association land assessment, this came out not as a purple that shouldn't be built on, but it came out as a lilac. So it was only just 1 degree under land to be protected. I have a vague memory. I'll have to go and have a look at it.
Yeah, but it'd be useful if we could cite previous assessments made on the site and
I'll have a look at that and let you know.
Yeah.
If Bill could look up whether it's had a refusal on it, that would be useful.
Okay.
Yeah, I can do that, but it definitely has. I can. I'll go back to that. No problem.
Yeah, if you can check that out, that'll be useful.
I will do that.
Well, it looks to me as if we have got a bit of work to do before we've finished off our response to this particular proposal.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got 2 weeks, haven't we? So
yeah. So,
I mean, is it worth having a vote just to confirm the objection?
That's what I was going to suggest, Toby. Could I have a vote, please, on that? That's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, Toby.
Okay, we'll move on to the next one. So I'm going to skip SUAB to start with. In fact, because I haven't even written anything in there because it relates to what we've discussed. Tidding today. So I guess people have seen where this is. So it's right next to the Home Guard Club, next to the sports centre. It's a relatively, I think, small number of housing. I'm suggesting we support this in principle because it's basically next to an existing development, essentially of new.
Yeah. It's
and I can't think of a reason.
It's beyond, just beyond the Sid Courtney development, which was the latest development in Tiddington. So I assume all the accesses are going to be off Sid Courtney Road.
Is it within the town boundary, Ian?
Yes.
Oh, well, in that case, that's fine.
Okay.
Right, Councillor Fradgley?
We've had no comments from people in Tiddington about it.
None that I'm aware of, but I would assume, and Councillor Rolfe hasn't said anything.
Yeah, because I'd have thought if it was contentious, we would have heard about it. So in that case, I think we could say I'd agree in principle. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, can I take a vote on that, please? Thank you, that's unanimous.
Okay, so I guess it's really crunch time on SUAB and also the associated proposal SUA 5 as to whether we object to it and if there's any further discussion points we need on it.
Well, could I just say that SUA 5 was a reserved site anyway, because it was put in the last lot of reserved sites we had some months ago, when they got 4 or 5 reserved sites within Stratford, and most of them were south of the river, and this was one of them. So I would suspect that this one would go forward whether we objected or not.
Is there a division to be made here that we would not be particularly averse to this to be housing, but would not want to see business development on here? Don't know.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Fradgley, could I just add that it's 210 houses it's listed as, and the business park, or whatever they're going to call it, is going to allow for up to 60 businesses.
Wow.
I think that there needs to be some discussion about infrastructure.
Yeah.
But I don't know where we have that discussion, because obviously if you're having 210 houses, I don't know quite where the kids are going to go to school, but it's obviously not Bridgetown, because that's full. Well, whether it's full in a few years' time or not is another matter. But also there's the road infrastructure as well.
Could I just say that if it's up to 60 businesses, wouldn't this be terrific for a kind of high-tech startup businesses, games, virtual stuff? If it was that sort of business development of highly paid, innovative jobs, which might have spin-offs, would be something that you'd be looking for rather than anything traditional. Could this be the area where we're looking for the future of Stratford and its jobs?
That kind of contradicts the justification for it, in that it's there to support businesses moving out of the canal quarter.
Yeah.
Which is what I find a little disturbing, but yeah.
I mean, if they're moving out of the canal quarter, then quite a lot of those businesses on Western Road, who I know are unhappy about SUA2, are going to be car dealers.
Going to be car dealers, yeah.
Councillor Dowling? Oh, sorry, you voted. Sorry, Bill. And does anybody else want to say anything about this? No. What shall we vote on? That we're personally, I'm not quite sure I put support. I might put no objection. There you go.
I mean, I think what you need, I mean, I suppose it's the difficulty in terms of tying this in with the policies, because I think I've put forward, we need to we've not voted on the policies, because obviously what the policies state is this becomes a firm site which gets developed. I mean, as a site on its own, without those policies associated with it, do we think it's viable as a reserve site for housing? And is that something we could agree to? But what we perhaps don't agree to is that it immediately comes forward as a mixed development with 200 houses and businesses, or is it we object to the whole area, the whole concept of things being developed in this particular site? I mean, it is the one thing I do note about it is it's a bit like what when we discussed the project on the brownfield site on the Banbury Road, which was a bit out of town, and I'd see that putting houses here they're going to be at least half a mile away from any other dwellings in Stratford, and you're sort of almost getting more close towards Clifford Chambers almost. So that's the thing I didn't like about it. It was almost built out as it's almost like its own little area.
Yeah, I mean, just bear in mind, Toby, that the back of Waitrose, you've got McCarthy and Stone. There is another plot of land on that what is it called, Springfield Road or something, which is another care home developer has got an interest in, and that would take you right to the edge of the field, and then the next field would be where these houses and this business park would go. So, Mr. Mayor.
In answer to the question that Toby has just asked, in principle, I don't have any objection to this site going on the reserve site list for future developments, sometimes for housing. Now, and then, so having established that in my own mind, I'm okay. I think the bigger question then becomes how many houses and whether they wanted to make it mixed is one question, and whether we would be in favour of it being brought forward immediately is another question. But I think the first question is, in principle, I'm happy for it to be on the reserved housing list.
Councillor Fradgley?
I think I probably agree with Tony there, but I don't actually want, because we've got to agree to something. If we don't, we're going to get houses where we don't want them to go, and that's what we don't want to happen. I think I think the difficulty with this coming forward immediately is infrastructure. So I would say in principle, it can be developed for housing, but we've got to be assured that we've got the infrastructure to cope with it, because all these people coming here will want to go across Clopton Bridge.
Could I remind you at our last, I think it was our last meeting, we went out to Long Marston for a little trip, and we had, was it 2 presentations from there? I guess where the traffic's going to be coming.
Yeah.
It's the same problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same infrastructure problem.
Yeah. It's infrastructure. So, I mean, I would propose that we actually agree in principle for a development, but not an immediate development because of the issues of infrastructure.
Okay, I mean, just for the context with the response. So in terms of the site SUAB, we would support that as housing, as a reserve site.
Yeah.
But what we would do is essentially object to policy SAP4, which effectively is releasing that immediately.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'd also object to proposal SUA5, which is the mixed development, which requires the housing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Right. Does anybody else want to say anything? No? Could I have a vote on something?
Well, on what Toby's just said.
Yes.
Right.
Go on.
Do you want me to clarify what I just said?
It's all right. They've already voted.
Right. So
except Councillor Cleaver's quickly whipped hers off.
Yeah, I was just I just wanted to clarify that, I was confirming that I was happy with what Councillor Lee and Councillor Jenny Fradgley said. And then we voted, so.
Yeah, okay. Are you all happy?
Yeah.
Delighted.
Okay, thank you.
Just clarity, Chair. What I suggest to do is write this up again.
Yeah.
And I'll circulate that to you, Chair, and then you can circulate that to the wider committee to make sure everyone's happy.
I think you're correct, Toby, that this is one that we did need to have a debate on, just the same way as the one on Borden Hill. Thank you. Is that it, Toby?
Yeah, that's all of the matters covered. So it covers both the policy and the 3 sites that we were specifically interested in around Stratford. Unless anyone has any comments on anything outside of Stratford, I know that I've not read it, but I know there's a lot of information on Meon Vale. Seems to be a lot of people not happy about that. And there is one final opportunity to quiz Stratford District Council on this policy. I tried to go to the one today, but unfortunately I was hampered by both technology and work commitments. But there is a final Zoom meeting on Thursday between 6 and 7, where we are able to put forward questions to Stratford District Council.
Well, Toby, excellent piece of work. Well done.
Absolutely.
Fantastic piece of work.
Yeah, brilliant.
Right, thank you, Toby. Right, that was item 8.5A. I'm going to go on to item 9 now, which is Chairman's verbal report. Last week at the Town Council, we had a presentation from Tony Perks and Sarah Aspley about the Stratford Riverside project, which I think everybody was at. One of the things coming out of that is they've submitted, obviously they've got it all on the website now and everything, and they're having a consultation. And the consultation has to be in by the end of January. So I think we, as a responsible planning committee, should be thinking about what we would like to say about this particular proposal. I've discussed it with Sarah, and you know, Sarah's fine with that. So I'd like us to do another consultation response on that. Are you all happy with that? Councillor Fradgley.
Could I just say that I think each one of us should look at that, and we should be given a time by which we actually put in our main comments to you, Chair, and then those are distributed around, and then we can pull the document out of those. Because I think this is an issue that everybody is going to have a different point of view on, I think. So rather than Toby orchestrating the whole thing, we actually need to put our own views in to make sure that our particular points are captured there.
Well, Councillor Cleave wants to say something, and I can hazard a guess as what it's going to be.
Yeah, it would obviously just declaring an interest in that I'd have to being interested.
Thank you, Councillor Cleave.
Mr. Mayor.
Are you all in agreement that we should look at this and submit a response as a planning committee? I think there's very definitely a mood these days that we don't just spend all our time looking at planning applications. We get involved also in what's happening in our town from the planning point of view. And this is the right place for it to be as far as the town council is concerned. I was going to ask, actually, before Councillor Fradgley jumped in, is anybody interested in taking a lead on this apart from Councillor Cleave? Toby?
I thought, yeah, you sent me the leading email before. I'm happy to take a lead on this in terms of collating people's comments. I'm particularly interested in the bridges aspect, as I made clear at the last when we had the presentation.
All right. Well, we've got till the end of, I think it actually is the 31st of January. We've got till then to do something. We have another planning committee meeting in a couple of weeks' time, and I think what we'll try and do is make sure that we put something together as initial thoughts on it for that meeting. Okay.
Yeah.
The a couple of things that, yeah. At the last meeting, we made a judgment on the ice rink proposal for on the rec for licensing and the like. I think what it's looking like is we're not getting an ice rink because of the circumstances. But the other aspect of it is that it's more than likely we're going to have a testing centre on the rec.
Instead.
Yes, instead. And I did say to somebody at the district council, because I was told, because it's in my ward, it would be interesting if you had a testing centre in the middle of an ice rink, but never mind.
Yeah, can I just mention on the ice rink, I know that Coventry City Council has run into huge problems because there is a strong view held among some councillors, I believe it is, that only people from Coventry should be able to access the ice rink. And that then seems to be sort of spilling out into, because I think it's, I don't know if it's the same company that would be managing the one in Stratford, but it's turning into a complete minefield. So I gather from her upstairs anyway.
Yes, well, I'd heard a rumour that Warwick have cancelled theirs as well.
Yeah.
So, okay. Item 10. Request for alterations of our previous recommendation was, well, as most of you know, the current Shottery Bloor development, quite some time ago now, we made some objections to it, and I think we spoke about this at our last meeting, but we had a request to, I mean, the developer have made some adjustments. So we had a request to have a meeting with the developer to see if they could talk to us about our objections. And present at that meeting was the ward councillors, the county council for the ward, and the district council for the ward, myself, Eddie Wrench, who is the SDC officer, and a couple of the developers. And at the end of the day, we were nearly satisfied with what they'd done and had to say. So we have changed our recommendation to no reps, but we've put a load of things on the underneath that about what we'd like to see, if possible. So that's one instance where we don't normally get that type of thing so big as this, but anyway, it's on the agenda for, is it tomorrow night, Jill?
Yeah.
At SDC. Okay. Right. Item 11, to register to speak at SDC. We only have one application for in Stratford on that agenda, and it's not one that we objected to or supported, so we don't need to go to that one. And then on the 16th of December, we haven't got the agenda as yet. Okay. Item 12, to appoint substitutes for the next virtual chairman's actions.
Over the years and over where has almost taken on that.
Well, I should be available again now, but then I have had a few problems again tonight, so
okay.
There ought to be a sub available.
Yeah, well, it's
so was Kevin, isn't it?
Yeah. I think Kevin's been enjoying himself. I think it's the starting off the morning talking about football that does it.
Yeah. Well, I should be there for that one anyway.
Okay. Right. So that brings us to our next meeting, which is scheduled for 2 weeks tonight, 15th of December. And I'm closing the meeting at 19:23, or even 24, as it's just clicked over. Thank you. I hope, well, as an aside, I hope you've enjoyed a planning meeting with a difference. But I do personally think it's worthwhile that we do start taking an interest in our town is being developed up front.
Yeah.
Okay.
Could you stop the stream, please, Chair?
Yes, I'm going